How to Win Friends and Influence People. How to actually use this book if you have social anxiety. So this guide is gonna be for people that have social anxiety. For people that have read this book, or if you have not read this book yet, this is how to apply this book if you have social anxiety. If you have social anxiety, you will apply, or you've been applying these principles in the wrong way, and you have been taking them out of context. And this is what I mean by that. What I'm going to talk about in this video is, if you have social anxiety, you must apply these principles in a whole different way. The two mistakes that you are probably making, or that you will make if you apply this book, and how to actually use this book to make a bunch of friends as someone that has social anxiety. So if you have social anxiety, listen to me carefully. So if you don't know what this book is, this book was written in 1936. Right? This book has been published more than 80 years ago. People till this day in business, if they're just regular dudes and they want to make a lot of friends, I've heard great things about this book, and I've also have made a lot of friends because of by applying the principles of this book. You literally become a social magnet, right? So it's crazy the fact that this book has more than 80 years, but people, if you apply this principle till this day, they still work. Once again, if you have not read this book, or if you have read this book, let me just remind you of the best principles of this book to make a bunch of friends and become a social magnet. Become a good listener. Encourage other people to talk about themselves. So just listen to people. Just don't say anything. Just listen to them. And let others share their stories, their experiences. The more that you listen to people, the more that they like you. Besides just listening to them, make the other person feel important. And do it sincerely, right? Make them feel like they matter to you. Not only listen to them, but when they talk about their accomplishments or the things that they've done, look impressed, right? The more impressed you look, the more they feel important. Wow, it's like, oh yeah, I did this, man, and I didn't want to do it. Wow, you did that thing? Wow, man. So how do you feel? To be honest, man, it was right. If you just make them talk about themselves and make them feel important, they are gonna like you. Become genuinely interested in the other person. So ask questions about the life, the interest in the things that they've done. Just look super interested in them, and they will be able to see the energy. And they're like, oh wow, this person looks interested in what I'm saying, and they're gonna feel encouraged to keep talking about themselves. Smile. The more that you smile to people, the more approachable you look, the more open you will be to others, and the more that they're gonna like you. And always remember people's names and call people by their names. This is the sweetest sound to people. Hey, Michael, how you doing today? Michael, what do you think of this? Hey, Michael, when was the first thing that you were like, damn, right? When you just call people by their names, they love to hear their names. So these are the best principles from this book. And if you apply them, you'll be a social magnet. From my own experience, as someone who has experienced social anxiety, after I've read this book years ago, and I've been applying it wrong and taking it out of context. Not because this book is not good, not because I was dumb and I didn't know how to apply this principle, but it was because of my social anxiety. So I was taking a lot of these things out of context, and I was applying this book in a wrong way because of my social anxiety. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Why do guys that have social anxiety must apply these principles differently? So first, let me put this aside for a second. Let me put this book and the principles aside for a second. And I want you to understand social anxiety. And I'm going to explain social anxiety in so simple that you're going to be like, dude, I understand where my social anxiety comes from, right? So there's a lot of layers and things going on your mind. And this is making you feel anxious and awkward around people. So before applying this principle, before talking about this book, we have to understand social anxiety. Because social anxiety, when you feel tense, when your heart is racing around people, that is not the problem that you have to address. Social anxiety is actually the symptom of something. The symptom of these beliefs. The beliefs that you're not good enough. The beliefs that there's something wrong with you. The beliefs that you're a weirdo, right? Since you have these beliefs about yourself, this is why you feel anxious around other people. This is why it is super scary to be seen and heard by others, right? If you had to give a speech in front of a crowd, how are you going to feel? You're going to feel like you're going to die. You're going to feel super anxious. And this is why. Because it's super scared to be seen and heard by others. Because since you believe that there's something wrong with you, When people put you on the spot and when people see you and hear you, they will see that there's something wrong with you. And once they see that, they will reject you. And what you have to understand is that love is a human need. Now you might be like, oh, fuck love, I don't need you. I don't need love, right? But that's the same thing as saying, I don't need to sleep. I don't need to eat, right? You might think that you don't need to, but in reality, your mind, your soul, whatever you want to call it, craves and needs love in order to survive. Love is a human need. So we were meant to socialize. We were meant to be in a tribe, to procreate, to find our soulmate. We were meant to be loved. We were meant to love and find love, right? So, since people reject you, that means that you will not receive love. And if you don't receive love, a rejection means that you will die subconsciously, right? And that's why you feel anxious around people, because you're like, oh, people means rejection. Rejection mean no love. No love means you'll die, and if you die, you feel anxious. It's kind of like, imagine if you had a tiger next to you that was like literally staring at you. How would you feel? You will feel anxiety because your survival mode kicks in, because you will die. It's your mind warning you, hey, you were gonna die. So that's why you feel anxious. So that the same thing happens when you go out. Since you are about to get rejected and you will not receive love because there's something wrong with you, your anxiety kicks in because subconsciously you will die because you will not receive love. Hopefully that makes sense, right? This is how it looks. You feel anxiety because there's something wrong with you. So this is what I want you to understand, right? So since you're not good enough, if people see the real you, if you're just yourself around people, if you offer yourself to people, the pretty girls, the guys, the cool guys, you will not get loved and you will get rejected because subconsciously you believe that there's something wrong with you. That's why if they see the real you, you will not get accepted by people. So that's why you have to compensate the fact that you're not good enough with being nice, with being agreeable, with kindness, right? Because if you think to yourself, okay, if I am nice, if I help people, if I just agree with what people say, if I avoid conflict, if I am kind with people, if I'm good with people, people will like me, right? You're compensating the fact that you're not good enough, the fact that if they see the real you, you will be rejected with kindness, with being agreeable, right? Instead of being the opposite, which is, this is me, this is David, this is who I am, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, take me or accept me, right? This is the healthy way that you should be interacting with people. Now, you turn into a nice guy and you agree, you're kind, you take good actions because you're like, if I do all of this, I will compensate for the fact that people don't like me. So the more that I help people, the more nice that I am, the more liked I will be. So this leads you to frustration though, because let me ask you these questions. Have you agreed with people's opinion even though you disagree with them? Have you tried to help people and you feel like the more that you help, the more they like you back? You feel bad when you disagree or say no, or you cannot say no to someone because you feel like if you do, they're not gonna like you? If the answer is yes, 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 you're a nice guy. And the reason that you're a nice guy is because you fear that people will reject the real you. So you have to compensate this fact with being a nice guy, right? So you feel forced to do all of this because if you don't act like that, if you don't help people, if you don't disagree with people, people will not like you as a person. So you need to compensate it somehow. Bringing the book to our awareness and bringing these principles to our awareness now. The mistake that I see from people, from guys that have social anxiety, and the mistake that I used to make when applying these principles is you become analytical as fuck. And now you might be like, David, what do you mean by that? This is what I mean. What you gotta understand is your intentions behind applying these principles. Because your intentions behind applying these principles, can you guess what they are? If you read this book and you're like, okay, I'm gonna make more friends and I'm gonna get people to like me, can you guess what are the principles and what are the intentions behind applying these principles? Get people to like you. Get people to accept you. You seek approval and validation from people. So instead of doing it with your actions, Instead of being agreeable, being nice, kind, instead of doing it with your actions, you do it with this principle. So since you want to be liked by people and you want to compensate it without being yourself, you get obsessed with these principles too. And you're like, how can I get these people to like me with these principles? You bring this principle to the extremes because you really want and you really need people to like you. Instead of using these principles on your side and on your favor, you use them against you. And this is what I mean by that. Right? The first principle, smile, become interested in other people, remember people's names, be a good listener, make other people feel important, right? We know these principles. Now, you will use, or you're using these principles against you. Because every conversation should be spontaneous, smooth, natural. But now, since you know these principles, every conversation turns into steps, into you trying so hard to apply these principles in a good way. You become analytical, right? You start to judge the performance of how well you're performing these principles, right? You become genuinely interested in other people. Am I asking the right questions? Did I ask the right questions? Oh, can they see that I'm interested in what they're saying? Smile. Am I smile? Can they see that my smile is genuine? Am I smiling too much? Remember people's names. What is the other person names? Oh my god, I forgot it. They just mentioned their name and I forgot it. I cannot ask them again. They're not gonna like me if I ask them what the name is because they just mentioned their name to me. Be a good listener. Can they see that I'm listening enough? Am I nodding too much? As you can see, you have all of these principles, which they are amazing. But since you have the wrong intentions, you're using these principles against you. Because what are your intentions? I need them to like me. I need approval. Now you're being analytical and judging everything you do and say, and you're not present or enjoying the conversations because you're thinking about how well your performance is, how well you are applying these principles on the conversation. And this is make you become analytical because you cannot enjoy the conversation or it's not natural. You cannot be present. You cannot really listen to other people because you are analytical. You're thinking about you and how well you're performing these principles, right? Okay. The mistake number 2 is you turn every interaction into a interrogation. What do you mean by that, David? This is what I mean. So we can summarize these principles of the book into make people talk about themselves, make them feel listened, interesting, important, period. If you do that, people will love you. The problem is that what I used to do and what I see from other guys that have social anxiety, they let the pendulum go to the other side, right? They use this to extremes. And this is what I mean by that. Since I have to make people talk about themselves, make them feel listened, interesting, important, I'm going to not talk about me at all. I won't share my stories, my opinions, things about my life because it's all about them. So you end up saying literally nothing because it's all about them, right? And the other person cannot really get to know you. And this is something that used to happen to me. I wouldn't enjoy the conversations that I had with the friends that I would make, with the people that I would hang out with the girls that I would date, because those conversations are not spontaneous, are not natural, right? There should be a balance of you speak 10% of the time and they speak 90% of the time. It's not really enjoyable, right? Because you want to talk about, you want to feel important too. You want to share something about yourself too. You want to feel listened to. So it should be more of a 30 to 70% of the time. You speak 30% of the time and you let them talk 70% of the time. Because you'll be surprised to see the amount of people that like what you like and do the things that you love to do. Because the more that you share things about your life, your values, your stories, your hobbies, your thoughts, your beliefs, your passions, it's kind of like fishing, right? And let me give you this example, right? Because the hook is your values, your stories, and what things you like, right? Let's say you wanna go and fishing, right? The hook is the people that you attract, right? The fish that you attract. So I remember that one time I was talking to this guy and I was like, yo, how was your day, bro? And he was like, good, I did this, I did that. I was super busy because I had to do some stuff for my car. How was yours? right? And I didn't continue. I was not like, oh, so your car, so right. I was not like, okay, so the principle is make them talk about themselves, and I was not good. And also, your car was broken. What do you mean, right? Instead, I shared something about myself. Oh, it was good, man. I did this, I did that, and I also read a book. And I remember that when I said I also read a book. He was like, "You read books, dude? I love to read books too." So he started to share something about himself, about what books he was reading, what books he loves, and he showed it to me. He was like, look at this, and I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to start a business. I'm reading this book about business, right? So since I was able to shoot my shot, right, to shoot the hook, I was able to get people to like what I like, which is reading books. So the more that you share, the more that you throw the hook to others, the more people will come to you. The people that resonate with you, the people that like the things that you like. You can get a lot of girls and a lot of guys that have the same values, stories, the same things that you like. So this is super cool. So instead of being like, everything should be about them and I should never say anything about me, share something whenever you feel like sharing something, right? Instead of turning every conversation into interrogations and make them talk about more about them. What I mean by this is, okay, you need to make them talk about more, right? I don't want you to take this out of context. What I mean by that is, whenever you feel like saying something, say it. Whenever you feel like sharing something, share it. Maybe you guys are talking about, I don't know, a diet. Oh yeah, I'm trying to do this diet. And you're like, oh, that's good, man. And I'm trying to eat blueberries. Oh, that's good, man. I read a book about that, and it talks about that blueberries are good for your brain. Or, oh yeah, man, I heard about this. I watch a video on YouTube, and it talks about blueberries, right? Or whatever the case is, just whenever you feel like sharing something, share it. Whenever you feel like saying something, say it, right? Don't just be like, I need to make them talk about themselves. No, you can share things about yourself too, right? Don't be anxious by sharing things about you, because that's the fear that we have is, I have social anxiety, therefore I have to make people to like me. Because I remember when I started doing this and I started to break this belief of make them talk about themselves only. I remember that I helped this beautiful girl at my job. And for me, it blew my mind. I was like, wow, like this is a girl that I would that I would marry. And I helped her, and I felt amazing. I was like, wow, just because I shared something about myself, right? I threw the hook, because she was like, I was like, how was your break? And she was like, oh, it was good. I read this book, this and that. And then she asked me, how was your break? And I was like, it was good. I went to this cafe and I was reading this book about social anxiety. And then she was like, oh, social anxiety. I experience social anxiety too. Do you have any tips? And then we started talking about social anxiety, and then how I used to experience social anxiety, how she experienced social anxiety, and I gave her an advice that helped her. And I was like, dude, I've been applying this principle wrong, right? So just share something more, you share more about yourself, right? Because you will eventually be more fulfilled in conversations with your friends, with your girls, with the dates, because you are enjoying the conversation as well. So instead of making it a 10 to 90, make it a 30 to 70, right? You speak 30% of the time and you let them talk 70% of the time, right? So that was the second mistake that I see that a lot of people made. And then the last thing is how to actually use this book to make a bunch of friends as someone that has social anxiety. So if you have social anxiety, first thing first, you should work on that first, right? Because when you address this first, you will be able to change the intentions that I was talking about earlier. So instead of being like, I need you to like me, I need you to love me and accept me, you accept yourself and you love yourself. And now the intentions are different, right? You talk to people, and if you get rejected or if people are not interested in you, you just move on because you love yourself, because you feel whole, right? So first thing first, you should address your social anxiety so you can watch the videos, right? I only talk about social anxiety, and if you take action on the things that I talk about, you will be able to be free from social anxiety. But if you want me to personally help you and implement these things in your life so that you can be 100% free from social anxiety, check the link in the description, and I will help you to overcome the social anxiety. Anyway, instead of talking to people to get to like you, right? So the four things that I've tried, I put three. The four things that I've tried that has been super powerful as folk is from working in a restaurant. Now they're having hundreds of people, hundreds of conversations with customers. Some of them get to say, I really love David. Some of them have literally last week, someone called the manager and he gave a compliment about me, right? This happened to me last week. The reason I'm able to do that is because I smile. I smile, yes, I smile, but I apply four principles. The first one is the first impressions, because what you gotta understand is that people judge a book by its cover. So the way that they will talk to you is by being approachable and likable. This is where smiling and using tone helps. So whenever I'm greeting someone or whenever I see a stranger walking on the street, I always smile. I don't give a fuck if they are serious. I don't give a fuck. Right? I don't give a fuck if I was gonna tell a joke, but that's inappropriate. I don't give a fuck if they just got divorced. I'm just gonna smile. Hey, how you doing today, man? And when I do that, people smile to me back. I had some cases where assholes are just like serious and they don't answer me back, but I don't give a fuck. Because I had more cases where people are super open and they like me back whenever I smile and I use the tone. So sound like they are important to you. Sound like, oh wow, you're here. How you doing? Right? Treat them, make them feel important, right? So I smile and I'm like, hey, how you doing today? Hey, Michael, what's up, man? How are you, bro? Yo, Michael, what's up, man? How are you? Right? I affect the tone, but they feel listen and they love that. So that's something that I love to do whenever I'm talking to strangers. Hey, what's up, bro? How you doing, man? And when I do that, they love that, right? And the limiting belief that I had is, oh, this is weird. People would think that I'm weird if I smile too much. Because I had the same belief before, and some guys that have social anxiety have shared this with me too. It's like, I don't want to smile too much, or I feel like awkward when I smile too much. But the reality is, people love to see a smile. People love to see positive and people with good vibes. Because I remember that a customer one time, he said, "This man is always smiling. I love that. He inspires me to have a positive attitude." Right? Imagine how impactful my smile and my attitude was with this guy, that he was like, oh, this guy inspires me to have a positive attitude. That was crazy, right? So the more that you smile, the more good vibes you bring to others. So fuck the ref people, fuck the being serious and mysterious and hey, what's up guys, how we doing? Fuck that. People love to have good vibes and good people around them. And then once you are inside of a conversation, always remember people's names and make them talk about themselves. There's a concept called mirroring, which is you repeat the last three words that someone just said. So I apply this at work whenever people are like, "Oh, can I get a napkin? You want?" Or whenever someone is like, "Can we wrap this up? Or can we have this to go?" I repeat the last three words that they said, which is called mirroring. Oh, you want to have that to go? Yeah, of course, I got you. Right? Because the more people like to be in an environment where they feel familiar with other people, right? Let's say if we bring you to a new city, you will feel discomfort, right? It's gonna feel uncomfortable. So you wanna make people feel comfortable. So that's why you're gonna mirror what they say, the last three words of every sentence. So if they are like, yeah, so yesterday I went to the beach and it was rainy. Oh my God, you went to the beach and it was rainy? Yeah, man, it was rainy. And then they keep talking about themselves. That's something that I like to do. Or just ask why. Or what made you take that action? Oh yeah, I'm studying business. Oh, you're studying business. Oh, what is making you study business? Or what made you choose to study business? Oh, because of this, right? And they talk about themselves. So make people talk about themselves, and don't make the mistake of making the rule 10 to 90. Make it 30 to 70, which is whenever you feel like saying something, say it, share it, and you will be able to have better conversations, and you will be able to basically have more enjoyable conversations. So that's basically the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.